Welcome to the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast with your hosts, Pat High, Richie Kopech, and Joe Caposi. Welcome to the lair. Welcome into the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. I'm your host, Matt High, joined by Joe and Rich. You're going to be seeing we're doing an underdog draft. We had a couple minor difficulties, so we had to start and stop. So you're seeing right now, I chose Jamar Chase at 101, and Joe chose Justin Jefferson. Before it crashed, we were talking about the reasons why. So just diving in right back into the episode, I chose Jamar Chase because to me, him and Justin Jefferson are kind of coin flips for this season. And the way I look at last year is Jamar Chase, if he didn't get hit with that injury and miss 5 games, I do think there was a potential that he could have outperformed Justin Jefferson. And with that, Justin Jefferson being the wide receiver 1 in 2022, not taking anything away from him, but if you had him last year, there were a couple games where you were kind of disappointed in him. And I know wide receivers have that fluctuation. Even the best guys have their down games, but he had a couple games where he didn't amass more than 50 yards. And Jamar Chase was steadily hitting that like every week. And I do think they have similar upsides. Justin Jefferson, I think it will have more targets. And if you're in a PPR league, that would be where I kind of lean. But for the purposes of this, I wanted to take a shot on Jamar Chase, hoping he takes a even bigger step forward that I think he can, and see where it goes. I'd rather have that on my team and build in safety a little bit later. So I'm assuming you would do the opposite, Joe.
Yeah, I think Richie's with me, or we both think that you're crazy. Justin Jefferson. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Jamar Chase, but I don't think you pass up on Justin Jefferson at 1.1 for Jamar Chase. I think he's just too good of a player from what we've seen. I mean, look at what Justin Jefferson's working with Kirk Cousins, which I arguably is a much less talented quarterback than Joe Burrow, and he's still producing these numbers. It's so, and you got to also think about the situations too. I mean, look at the Vikings. They just got rid of Cook. I mean, granted, Madison's good, but I feel like they're going to be passing a little more without Cook there. And then they also don't have Hawkinson anymore. So you really got to look at the pieces there. I mean, besides Addison, JJ's the guy. Whereas you look at the Bengals, they still have Joe Mixon's there. He's going to be running the ball. You got T. Higgins he has to compete with. You have Boyd he has to compete with. So I just like his situation better. I just think Jefferson's number one.
Yeah, I mean, not really. Just to piggyback off that as well. I mean, if you're looking just strictly off the last year's season, 2022 season, Justin Jefferson had 9 weeks where he had at least 25 points, fantasy points, in his box score. Out of the 16 or 17 weeks that you want to consider, I think if you want to consider 17, there might be 10 games that. Whereas Jamar Chase only has 2. So, I mean, not saying Jamar. I mean, Jamar's definitely, I would say, Jamar's 4 games have been a little bit better than Justin's 4 games, but I think your boom capability of Justin last year, at least just looking off last year, it hit more so than Jamar's. Not saying that Jamar can't do it because we've seen Jamar go nuts too. So, I mean, look, you're probably splitting hairs at this point, but point being is that I think in the retrospect of what best ball is, and trying to go for that, winner on the week, Justin Jefferson, I feel like might deliver a little bit more so than Jamar Chase.
Well,
But
we shall
we
find
digress.
out. So, Rich, you're up at 3. Where are you going?
So that does put me at the turn here. So I get to pick twice. And looking at the available options that I have here, seeing as you two took my 2 favorite boys already, I'm going to go ahead and take the running back one in this room here. That is Christian McCaffrey. We all know what he can do. CMC is deadly on the field, no matter where he comes from. He can catch, he can run, he can do it all. The Niners offense, I think, is a great place for him. I think we're going to see more of what we saw last year. And again, it's about getting that player that's going to give you those explosive weeks, and CMC can do that. And just to piggyback off him with another explosive player, that would be one Tyreek Hill.
I like it. I like
Just
it.
strengthen those sides there and keep on going.
So that comes to me. Um, Looking at the players on the board, the one player that at the top of the list there that I see that scares me a little bit is Stephon Diggs. I mean, he looked great last year with Josh Allen, but with all the question marks with what's going on with him right now, I don't want to waste such a high pick on a player that I don't know is going to be there playing and putting up points. So I'm going to go with arguably, I think, my number one running back in the draft class, which is Austin Eckler. The guy is a machine for fantasy points. I mean, he catches the ball, he runs the ball. He's on an explosive offense with Justin Herbert, and he even said, "Put me on your dynasty teams this year because we're running it back." So I trust him.
Yeah, that hurts because I was hoping I was hoping he was going to come to me. I figured you were going to go Cooper Cup. Uh, Now, I don't want to digress too much, but are you guys going back to the Stephon Diggs? Are you buying the dip in Dynasty right now? Would you take a manager who might be on the fence now with all the news, or are you hands off? Because for me personally, I think I'd buy the dip. He's still got the talent. They're going to work things out. I'm confident in that. They kind of put each other on notice with the front office, the coaching staff, and stuff on Diggs. I don't know what was going on. News was kind of going crazy, but I do think he is an amazing talent on a high-powered offense. This is your time. This is the time of year where you look at who is kind of you check the pulse on some of these players, and I think Stephon Diggs' value right now is still high, but it might not be as high as it would have been without that news. So what do you
Yeah,
guys think?
I don't think anyone's really panic selling Diggs right now. I mean, granted, like in a best ball, like not in a dynasty purpose, I don't think anyone's panic selling. In like a best ball, like one season draft with such a high pick, I might just steer away from him just to be safe. I mean, there's plenty of looking at the board, I could grab Cooper Cup or AJ Brown over him. I know their situations aren't in question. They're arguably just as good, and I'd rather take one of those with a high pick and let someone else take the gamble on Diggs with high picks.
Gotcha. All right, well, I am going to draft Cooper Cup because last year he was the best wide receiver on a points per game basis, outscoring Justin Jefferson. Only played, I believe it was 9 games, but in that 9 games was a absolute monster. And then I'm going to follow it up with my man Bijan Robinson. Very excited about him this season. I'm trying to get him everywhere I possibly can.
So that
Back up on the clock.
leaves me in a tough spot. It's really hard to not take Travis Kelsey here, the best tight end in in the draft. Um, Saying that, I think I draft Travis Kelsey here. He's just too good of a player. I don't have to worry about the tight end position really that much, except for on his bye week. So,
Excellent analysis. Drafting Travis Kelsey is always IQ of 7,000. So,
although I did see an interview with him recently that he likes the he's like, I want to lateral the ball more this season. And I'm like, please don't, because I need the fantasy points.
yeah, we'll
All
see
right,
what
well,
they
I'm a
go.
little disappointed that you took Kelsey there. I definitely was trying to withhold talking about him, so hopefully you could fall a little bit further just to me. Also, Bijan, I was really hoping for as well. So thanks, boys, for taking the two players right before me.
You're welcome.
Nonetheless, looking at my players and my situation here, CMC, Tyreek Hill, I think very explosive players. We see that. So just looking at the list, I think I'm just going to have to follow that kind of same repertoire I was doing. I'm going to look at the most available options. AJ Brown sticks out to me, and Garrett Wilson, I think, amongst the top. I really am excited for what the Jets are going to do as far as with Aaron Rodgers behind there. I think Garrett Wilson's a great player, and I think he's only going to improve with Rodgers throwing him the ball. So I think maybe we look at that direction and grab Garrett Wilson. And I'm gonna take AJ Brown as well, just because I love the both of them. AJ Brown's explosive, and it just carry on with the theme.
Well, that sucks because I really wanted to grab Garrett Wilson. Um,
Not today, sir. Not today.
I like Devonte Adams a lot. I mean, he's shown again that he's a top tier talent. The only thing I'm looking at right now is right now I have Justin Jefferson who has a bye week 13. Devonte Adams also has a bye week 13. I don't want to stack up too much with my best players on the same bye week. Um, I'm also looking at Nick Chubb. I really like Chubb this year, but I also just took Austin Eckler by week 5, and Nick Chubb has by week 5. So, saying that, I might try and grab. I think I'm going to dip a little bit, but I think he's going to have a good year. I think I'm going to grab Chris Olave because I think he's the wide receiver one in that offense. And I think he's going to get a lot of targets.
Not gonna lie, that was gonna be my next pick. Well, one of my next two picks. I was going to go with who I'm gonna go with now, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then I was hoping to follow it up with Chris Olave. But thank you for taking that out from under me. One thing I want to bring up too, because you brought up the bye weeks. Now, in normal leagues, I usually don't even care about bye weeks, especially especially late bye weeks, because things are going to change by then. Um, I haven't done too many best ball, and I understand that stacking bye weeks is probably not in the best interest. But wouldn't you want to sacrifice potentially losing 1 week, knowing that every other week your team is far and above, expectations? I mean, that's the way I would play. So I don't know
Oh,
if you guys have different thoughts. It sounds like you did, since that's one
yeah.
of the
I mean,
deciding factors.
with my top picks, I mean, I'm not between the skill between some of these players at the top is very like I'd be happy with any of these players. So saying that, like, then I look at bye weeks because I want to have at least one of my top, like my best players playing every week. So just that's what I look at. I don't want to like if I'm having my two best running backs be out the same week, then it's kind of like a dead week that I'm almost guaranteed to lose. Where is if I at least have like them split up, then I have a shot to win every week. So
Yeah, I got it. So now my next pick, I'm between really two players. Stefon Diggs is staring me in the face. There's another guy that I think is going to have another stellar season, despite some of the concerns that the offense has. I'm going to wait and see if he falls to me. He's probably not, but I'm going to try it. So I'm going to go with Stephon Diggs. Take the shot by any little bit of a dip
all
in his
right,
ADP. So where are you
I'm gonna
going?
go for it. I know it's I just talked about how it's the same bye week, but I think Nick Chubb's gonna have too good of a season not to take. I mean, no Cream Hunt now. He's gonna just be a monster.
Agreed.
You upset me. I was going to take Nick Chubb. Um, so I'm pretty much cool on the wide receivers here. I don't really care for CD or Devontae or Jalen, seeing as I have Tyreek, so I don't really need Jalen. A running back would be good before I give my picks back. It's kind of where I'm at. Some some decisions to make, though. I mean, JT. I mean, do we really feel like that's it? I mean, the way that this ADP is playing out, it's a little sad. I feel like we're wrong, JT here. I mean, everyone kind of gave up on the guy. So maybe I'm going to give him a shot. I'm going to go with him. Now, I mean, between him and Saquon, we do know Saquon can be crazy, but I have so many question marks about Saquon right now. Things are very confusing for me, I would say. Um, who else to go with? I guess at that. Mhm.
I have a feeling I know who you're taking here. We'll see if I'm right.
So maybe I'm going to go for Richie, but I do think this guy's going to have a quite a stellar year. And that would be one Tony Pollard.
Yep, that's where I thought you were going.
Hmm. I think I'm gonna jump the gun here, and I talked about how I didn't like it, but it's too late to pass up. I'm gonna grab Devontae Adams. He's shown us that he can be good with any quarterback. So
I was going to take him if he came back around to me.
All right, so my thought process paid off because I am going to grab CD Lamb. I don't buy the whole Mike McCarthy, we're going to run the ball to rest our defense. They're not going to be able to in multiple games. Going against the Eagles, they're going up against some high-powered offenses this year, and they're going to need to throw. I don't care about the news. I think that was blown out of proportion. CD Lamb is still the guy because just look at what they did. Let's look at the offseason moves. They let Zeke walk. They signed Brandon Cooks. You wouldn't do that if you were committed to the run to no end. So I do think they're going to pass at about the same rate, if not more, than last season because if you're down, running the ball isn't going to help you. And I do think, as great as this defense is, some of the offenses they're going against will make them and force them to throw the ball. And I do think this is going to be a bounce back year for Dak, and CeeDee Lamb is going to get the brunt of that work. So this is where I'm looking, and I got four running backs that I'm really looking at right here. I got to pick one of them. Saquon, I know there's a lot of concerns, but if he plays and he's good, you get Saquon, and he is amazing. So I'm gonna go with Saquon. Forget the other guys for now. I'll see if anyone comes back to me. But so CeeDee Lamb and
um
Saquon Barkley. Joe, you are up.
yeah, and I'm gonna grab the best quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Gives me the stack with Kelsey, so I'm gonna get double points when they're connecting, and gives me a little bit. I mean, I don't have to worry about Patrick Mahomes every week unless he gets injured. So
I was scared about few taking the stack, um, but then I also thought about something as well. I could take my own stack. But before I do that, something I wanted to just mention is it's kind of happening right now. If you are the person that gets to take Justin Jefferson in the beginning, if you're deciding between the two, remember that T. Higgins is a very much a solid player. And that if you take Justin Jefferson as your first, I mean, not saying it's going to happen and T. Higgins will follow you, but at least it's better off than if you have Jamar and then you're just staring T. Higgins in the face and you don't want both. Whereas Justin's his own animal. So I'm going to take T. Higgins.
I like the pick. Yeah,
Uh,
he's a great wide receiver. I mean, sometimes it's good. Like I know we usually talk about how you want to get that number one guy in the offense, but sometimes you don't need to be the number one guy in the offense to put up points. And T. Higgins is absolute proof of that. He does it year
yeah.
in, year out. He finishes close to a wide receiver one, even with Jamar Chase there. So he's just
Joe
solid all
Burrow
around.
can Joe Burrow can fully support both of them.
It kind of reminds me of the old Aaron Rodgers years where he had two top 24 wide receivers, and some years they were close to top 12 or top 15, you know. that's kind of where I see that, and I don't really care if Jamar Chase is there. T Higgins is still going to get his. It might be a little fluky here and there, depending on where the touchdowns go, but he still gets a lot of targets, and he might not have as many touchdowns, but the targets are what kind of keeps him afloat. Every week, you're kind of confident he's going to get his, 6 to 8 targets. And if Jamar Chase goes down, he becomes the alpha wide receiver in that offense, and with the potential to now become that guy. So it's a good shot to take.
Agreed. And then I'm just gonna also get my stack going on here with Agent Brown being my pick earlier and take Jalen Hurts.
That makes me happy because I was worried you were going to take the guy I wanted. I am grabbing Ramondre Stevenson. Um, he has a different bye week than both my running backs, and I think he's going to have a monster season now with what's his name out of there, Harris. Um, he's gonna crush it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to get him.
He's going to have to because Mac Jones can't really do too much.
Oh, he
So
can. You just hate him.
I just don't like subpar quarterback play on my fantasy team. It's just that there's very little upside. But all right, so now is where I'm gonna reach a little bit, I think, and I am going to go with Mr. Mark Andrews, second best tight end on in fantasy this season. At least that's how we're projecting it. And then I'm gonna grab. So this is where it's tough. I'm gonna take my shot on DK Metcalf. And I know I got a bunch of wide receivers, but it's not a bad thing in best ball to have a bunch of stud wide receivers. And I guess we probably should have mentioned this at the top of the show. It's a 3-person draft, so like this isn't how it's gonna go for if you got a 12 team. We're getting a lot of great players, and we're in the ninth round, so uh, it's fun. So figure this is like round 3 we're into in a 12-team league, but for our purposes, it's just going to be fun to see who got the best of the best, take our shots where we have them, and go from there. So, Joe, you are up on the clock.
Yeah, and I think I'm just going to take the best available player, which is Jalen Waddle. Gives me a different bye week in my wide receiver room because I got JJ and Devontae Adams with 13. I got Olave with 11, and now I have Mr. Jalen Waddle with 10. Gives me a little diversity in that bye week perspective, and just gives me another player that could have a monster game to plug into my best ball slots.
I like it. So, where are
I
you
like
going
it
now,
too.
Rich?
Well, I mean, a couple of different ways I could go here. Unfortunately, you did take Mark Andrews. I was really hoping he was going to fall to me, which I didn't think you actually were going to take him. So definitely a little bit of a reach, I would say, for you, but whatever, it's fine. Um, Looking at the players I have here, so Brees Hall, I think, sticks out to me. Josh Jacobs had a hell of a season last year, so can't knock him for what he did. Those are two players I think above all. Derrick Henry is still very much the Yeti, and we know what he is capable of, but I don't know if he's still capable of doing so. And I could also strengthen my quarterback room with, taking one of the two studs available here. So I think what I am going to look to do here is I am going to take the Stallion because I know how great he can be. So that way I can just shore up my quarterback room between those two running boys, and strengthen my running back room. I'm gonna go with Brees Hall.
Uh,
I,
you're the
as soon as
worst.
as soon as I saw his name, I'm like, Joe's gonna go for him. Joe's gonna go for him.
That was
He
my
doesn't.
next pick.
That's what I figured. I know you're a
Uh,
Brees Hall guy.
I'm a big Brees Hall guy. Not that I don't like Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs, but if I had to pick between the three of them, I would pick Brees Hall. But between these two, I think I'm gonna go with um, Derrick Henry. As long as he's healthy, we know what he can do. He gets all those goal line touches, and I'm hoping that he can produce. Also, my running backs are Eckler, Chubb, and Ramondre, so bye week 5, 5 and 11. This gives me a 7 in there. So again, just that more diversity.
All right, so I am up. I'm going to do a little bit more of a reach again, and I'm going to draft Lamar Jackson to get the Mark Andrews Lamar stack. And then I'm going to bypass some of these other guys. I'm going to go with my RB7 on the season that I'm projecting, Mr. Najee Harris. I think it's going to be a bounce back year for the Steelers, and he's going to be a major part of that. Kenny Pickett, year two in an offense. Last year, they had some struggles on the offensive line, and I do think they figured it out a little bit. And, I mean, year two quarterbacks, usually that's where they start taking the step. So if it happens this year, I'd rather have the player who has an immense talent level and should get most of the work. I know Jalen Warren got a lot of work last year, but I do still think he's going to be the main carry leader by a wide margin. So that's where I'm going to go. Back up on the clock, sir.
And I'm going to take this player. I've read a lot of good reports lately. I'm taking Calvin Ridley. I've heard he is just killing it at camp right now, and I'm excited to see him return to his former glory with Mr. T Law. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
I
Calvin's
like it a lot.
yeah, Calvin's a guy where he's going a little bit later because of the concerns that he missed basically over 2 years of football, and we saw that happen with Deshaun Watson, and he came back and he was really bad. There's no way around it. He was pretty bad. But the difference I see with this situation is that Calvin Ridley has a full off season with his team to learn and go, learn the playbook, build chemistry with the quarterback and the offensive players on that team. Whereas Deshaun Watson was away from the team until what, week 9 or 10. He wasn't allowed to even be in the building for a while. So I do think he's going to get into a slower start. So like early season, I think it's going to be a little, shake the rust off kind of deal. But once he gets going, I mean, his talent level is just insane. We saw him keep up pace with Julio Jones, who's going to the Hall of Fame. So I think a couple years off, get his head right, back into the game. He's still stayed in football shape from all reports that I've read. And I think this offense is going to be on the upper trajectory, and he's going to be a major part of this offense going forward. So I love that pick.
Yeah. Well said, Matt. I mean, just not really much to add there. Just I do like Calvin Ridley as well. I also think that they're gonna do great this or do good things this season. So I think all three of us are very much excited for what Jacksonville has in store. Um, so just going on to my pick then around the turn here with these two picks I'm looking at. A couple of players kind of pop out to me, but looking at what's available at the position kind of plays into it for me right now. And with that, there's not really many running backs left that I like. Um, I like a lot of more wide receivers left here than running backs. Quarterbacks, I think I'm a little bit short on, and tight end, I think it's a little too early for me to take another tight end off the board. So I'm just going to take a stab at the two offenses that I'm excited to watch this season. One that we just talked about in Jacksonville, that'd be one Travis Etienne. And I'm also very excited to see what Detroit's going to go or what's going to happen in Detroit. So I'm going to take my shot on to see what the rookie Jameer Gibbs has in store.
I mean, if you're going to do that, I will graciously take Josh Jacobs. So, I mean, he's shown that he can play football, and no, I'll take him that late.
Yeah, and one of the things too is he's in a contract year again, and one of the things you notice a lot, at least a lot of people in the fantasy industry pick up on, is when running backs in a contract year, they don't really, the team doesn't really care about them. Maybe that's a poor way to say it, but they'll use and abuse them because they have no commitments outside of this season. So like that's kind of what happened to him last year, why he got so much work. He had like 330 something carries last year. So they just used him as much as they could because they knew, all right, well, if he breaks down, we'll just draft someone or sign someone else. So he's in the same situation he was going into 2022 that now going into 2023 season. So he could get a similar workload just because they can do that. So I think getting him this late in our draft is pretty good value. So now I'm up on the clock, and this is where I would like to. I'm gonna make sure I get this another stack with Joe Burrow. I'm gonna draft Joe Burrow, so I get the Chase Burrow stack, and I'm gonna take a shot on a player that I think is going to have a repeat season and be the alpha in the offense again. And I do think this team is going to have a major bounce back with the new coaching hire. I'm going to go Jerry Jeudy, Denver Broncos. So I think he showed last year that he can be the guy, and I don't see anyone else really taking too much away from him. And I know one of my bold predictions was Tim Patrick will be a top 36 wide receiver, and I do still think that could be the case. Uh, but I don't think he's going to take away from someone of Jerry Judy's stature. So that's where my pick went. So, Joe, you're back up on the clock.
Well, I was gonna take Joe Burrow, so I guess
Not today, sir.
so.
Not
I already
today.
have Pat Mahomes, so I'm planning on playing him every week. So I just want to get someone with a different bye week than him. I think I'm gonna go with my boy. I'm gonna go with Mr. Justin Fields. He showed a lot of upside last year, and I'm hoping with the new weapons with DJ Moore and everything that he's just gonna continue to be that dominant weapon in that offense.
I like it. I'm excited to see him this year. And Rich, you are too, because you have him in our other dynasty league. So
Yeah, I am very much in on Justin Fields. Um, but yeah, so I guess looking at the players available, not really too many all stars. There's a lot of all stars here. Debo Samuel is we know can knock it out the park, but I already have CMC, so not that it really matters at best ball because it's more about just best points at the position. But the bye week stacks are stuff you try to avoid sometimes. Drake London kind of pokes out to me as a player that can potentially have some all-star weeks also there. DeAndre Hopkins, I think we're still trying to figure out where he's going. So just looking at what's here, I'm going to go with Drake London and a player that I'm really in on this year, kind of working off Joe's pick there. I think DJ Moore is going to have the best year of his career of his football career.
Ugh, that was my next pick.
as you
Um,
can all tell, we all kind of think the same. There's a couple guys that we're lined up with, and
I'm very high on DJ Moore. Um, so it comes to me. I think what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna finish up my quarterback room, and I'm gonna grab T-Law. I already have Ridley, so that gives me a stack with there. And I think if Patrick Mahomes or Justin Fields aren't putting up the points, T-Law will. And between the three of them, I should have a decent, good amount of quarterback points in that room. So one of them should shine bright every week. So
yeah, T Law is someone in redraft I'm going to be targeting heavily because I think he has a similar upside to some of these guys at the top. You know, maybe closer to like a Joe Burrow because he doesn't really rush as much as the other guys, so his floor might be a little bit lower, but in an offense that I think is going to be a more high-powered one, he's someone that will fall in drafts because the other guys get pushed up so high, and I still think his value is going to be incredible come September, August, and September when we're doing redraft. So I'm back up on the clock, and I'm gonna stop the fall of Devontae Smith. I'm going to take that. Thank you very much for letting him fall that far. And I'm going to go with Ken Walker here. I understand that he drafted Zach Charbonnet, and so his value looks like it's in a more downward trend based on where we were expecting him to go this year. Um, but I do think he is good enough to hold him off for a little bit. And if anything, I can always try to shore up that offense, their backfield later in the draft, if it comes to it. So I'm going to grab Ken Walker on the upside chance that he remains the main guy and gets the same amount of work. So, Joe, you're back up.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab the wide receiver one in Christian Watson. He doesn't have a lot of competition for targets there, so I feel like Jordan Love has to get him the ball. So
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
how to
that's
feel about him. What do you think about him, Rich? Christian Watson.
I don't know. It's hard to really buy into anybody as far as in the Green Bay offense, but nonetheless, if someone's going to have to get some targets there, get something going, and Christian Watson showed that he has potential to do so. Romeo Dobbs, I think, is really the only other competition there right now, as far as just in the receiver room per se. Which I've heard some reports of Romeo Dobbs kind of doing well as well, but I don't know. I like Christian Watson as an athlete, as a player. So I would like to see him kind of step into that alpha role. That's just kind of yet to be seen, and it doesn't really help that the quarterback is questionable at best. But moving on, look, so I have 4 picks left. So I need to pick a tight end really at this point. Not that I need to, but it'd be good to. And seeing as both of my opponents here have taken the 1 and the 2 away from me early on, I'm just going to grab the 3 before I can't get them, and they're going to hide them from me. So I will take TJ Hawkinson, who I do think is going to have a pretty good year. But yet to be seen. Would have definitely preferred to have Mark Andrews or Travis Kelsey. Not exactly super excited about Hawkinson, but he is a athlete, and we have seen him do some multiple touchdown weeks. So why not? And then looking at other options here, um, I'm very much in on the Chargers offense, and someone's going to have to lead them the way, and no one really can the way that Justin Herbert can. He's going to have I think, an up year this year. I know we've said it plenty of times in other podcasts, but I'm excited to see what they're going to do. Herbert should have a good time in that offense, I'd say.
100% agree. I'm very excited. The two offenses, I feel, well, I guess it'd be three offenses I'm really excited for this year. Uh, Jaguars, Chargers, and probably the Lions. I really like the Lions this year.
I agree with you on all 3 fronts. Those 3 teams I'm very much excited for.
They're going to be a common pick for a lot of people, I think, because they're
Yeah,
definitely teams that are on the upward trend, and just you could just tell based on where the ADP of their star players are going, and they're going in the top. A lot of them are going in the top 100 of drafts. So,
they're also
rightfully
like
so.
fun teams. Like it's not like we're like cheering for the Cowboys or cheering for like the Packers. Or, I don't know, a team that's like it's got some story to it of just like rivalries and all that. Like, I mean, it's the Jags, man. The Jags are cool. I don't know.
Yeah, you'll never catch me rooting for the Cowboys. I will root for Tony Pollard and CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott when I draft him, but everyone else, I hope the team loses because I'm a Giants fan and go Big Blue.
hmm. So I want to take a running back here. And the ones I'm looking at Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, and Madison. Um, I think all three are good. My thought process behind this pick is that Joe Mixon and Alexander Madison are on teams with both Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, who we know see a lot of targets, and they're a very pass-heavy team. Granted, I think both of them are going to do very well. I'm going to go with Aaron Jones since he is with Jordan Love, I think they're going to want to run the ball more than throw it if possible. And that's where Aaron Jones is going to come in. And I think he's just going to get more fantasy points in that regard due to that fact.
I agree with that. I do think that Aaron Jones might be a pretty good value this year. I don't expect great things because that offense is going through a major change, losing their, franchise quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. But we see this a lot of times where the quarterback might be somewhat of a question mark and they decide to take a little bit of pressure off him and run the ball. And I do think they have a really good tandem in Green Bay with Aaron Jones and I don't know why I can't remember his name right now, uh, Mr. Thigh Man, but it's gonna be one of those good
Talking about
times of
AJ
this year.
Dillon.
Yes, AJ Dillon. Yes, I don't know why that was escaping me. Must be late at night. But yeah, I do think that's a good pick. I think they're going to be, a little bit more involved than they have been, which is pretty crazy because they've both been pretty involved the entire time in their career. But I like
Yeah,
that.
it's tempting to take Madison. I think Madison's gonna have a killer year with Cook gone. Um, I've parted ways with Joe Mixon in Dynasty, and I don't want him on any of my teams ever again. And good riddance.
But this could be his
No,
year.
I'm done. I'm now the Brees Hall believer. I'm done with Joe Mixon.
Hey, you traded up, so
Yep.
in your pick, so that's good. There's still, I mean, again, three person draft. It's kind of easy to pick people. So we got three more picks each, I believe. Yes, three more picks. So, where am I gonna go? This is where I gotta get.
Well, you have three more picks. Me and Richie have two more left.
Okay, yeah. So a couple picks each, but I'm gonna go with Miles Sanders, who I have as a top 12 running back this year, going to a team with a rookie quarterback. So basically, everything we just said with Jordan Love kind of still applies to uh, Miles Sanders and the Carolina Panthers. And then I gotta look at some. There's two more positions I really need, so I'm gonna look up. Although I'm not 100% in on this, I'm gonna do it in best ball. I'm gonna shoot my shot that this is the year that Kyle Pitts becomes a thing and decides to show us what we all expected from him. We put the label on him way too early, I think, and he kind of you get a little bit of deja vu, and you're just a little hesitant more than you have been in the past to draft him, just because if you drafted him last year, he cost you a third, fourth round pick, and he burned you. But this year, I think I'm going to buy the dip. I'm going to draft Kyle Pitts.
Well, I am happy you took him because that was not my pick. Because I have Kyle Pitts in Dynasty. I have assigned Talmud of him. He's one of my favorite players. It is not his year, not until they get a reliable quarterback in that room. I don't think Spencer Riddler is, or whatever his name is. I don't think he's the answer. I don't think it's just, especially with Bijan there. No thanks. I'm gonna take the player I wanted, and I'm grabbing Darren Waller. Um, if you look at the Giants wide receiver room, it's not very impressive. So I feel like when Daniel Jones is going to have to throw the ball, I feel like Waller's going to be one of his top targets. So
I like that. I like that a lot. I was actually going looking to take Waller as my second tight end, but then I realized that he has the same bye week as Hawkinson, so not a good idea. Um, but yeah, I agree. Waller should see a good amount of targets from Daniel. They've been working out already together, so excited to see what we're gonna see from Darren Waller this season. So looking at players that I do need to grab a backup tight end in my room. So before I do that, just looking at the players really available. There's only two that kind of really stick out to me at this moment, and that's Alexander Madison, as kind of already mentioned, should have a pretty good year without Dalvin Cook there, but I don't know if I really like him more so than I like J.K. Dobbins. Um, I know that Lamar does love to run the ball, but I think this is going to be a very good year for Mr. Dobbins. So with that, I will take him, and I will end it with adding to my stack and going with Dallas Goddard.
So usually when I do best ball drafts, my rule of thumb is I like to have three of any position. So I got three quarterbacks, I got six wide receivers, six running backs. I only have two tight ends. God forbid one of my tight ends gets injured and out for the year. That would only leave me the one, and then the bye week I lose that entire position of points. So I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to take one of the other tight ends that I'm very high on this year, which is Mr. David Njoku. Um, we've seen that he can play football, and I think with Deshaun finally feeling a little more comfortable, just fills out the stack. I mean, can't go wrong with Waller, Kelsey, and Mr. Njoku. I mean, ideally Kelsey's going to be my tight end every week, but in the off chance Njoku pops off, I have him.
Yeah, Joker's going to be fun this year. I feel like he's going to have a very, very good season. He's going to be one of those guys that is still kind of lower in drafts, and I think he's going to be a wonderful value for you on draft day. So I'm up on the last pick. So I kind of agree with Joe. I would like to run out of this draft with at least three at each position, but I cannot do that. So I need to decide either having three quarterbacks or three tight ends because I think I'm okay on running back. Um, Although there's two guys here that are really, really enticing, and I do think they're going to have really good, solid seasons this year. So I'm gonna let you guys choose for me out of these two, and then we'll go from there. So between, I got Brandon Ayuk, who I think is going to have a great year. I think he's going to be a top 15 wide receiver, despite no matter who's playing quarterback for the 49ers, which we're not going to know for a long, long time. Deontay Johnson is a great player who I'm expecting for positive touchdown regression. He's not going to finish with zero. We went over that in one of our last episodes. We brought him up. Uh, and then I got to look at quarterback. And I do like Deshaun Watson this year. I think he's going to be another guy that has a bounce back. But Tua is also someone that when he shows up in a big way. And I already have the stability of quarterback. So do I shoot my shot on that? Or would you take Deontay or Ayuk?
Do you want my honest answer or my answer that I want to win this draft?
We go with honesty here, sir.
All right. I mean,
We're for the people.
Matt, you already have eight wide receivers. I think
Yeah,
that's plenty.
no quarterback.
I
Can
think you
never
go
have
quarterback just in case. God forbid one of yours is out for the season or even two. If you don't have a quarterback to get those points, yeah, that's a lot of points you're missing.
Yeah. It's kind of where I was leading. I really like those guys. So I wanted to make sure I brought them up, but I do think I'm going to go with Tua. I think he's going to be someone that a lot of people are going to be off of a little bit more just because of the obvious injury concerns, but this late in the draft as my third quarterback, I think it's worth taking the gamble. So that's where I'm going to go. No more talking about it. Let's lock it in. All right. So that is our draft. So why don't we go through our picks and let's go through our teams and figure this out. So, Joe, why don't you run down your team?
Well, just looking at the draft summary, purely based off of projected points, it has Richie coming in last, Matt High in second, and me in first.
So
You
obviously
guys
it's
have
wrong.
you are point. Oh, never mind. That is
That's projected points. So my team is, if you start at quarterback, I have Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence. All studs. Patrick Mahomes is the tight end or quarterback one. Running back room, I got Eckler, Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb, Ramondre Stevenson, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, and Aaron Jones. Very happy there. go to my wide receiver room. I got Justin Jefferson. I mean, can't argue there. Chris Olave, Devontae Adams, Jalen Waddle, Calvin Ridley, and Christian Watson. And then to finish up with my tight end room, I got Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, and David Njoku.
I like it. Rich, why don't you go?
So my quarterbacks are Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Justin Herbert, which I like that a lot. Running back room, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Tony Pollard, Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, Jahmyr Gibbs, J.K. Dobbins. Wide receiver room, Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, Drake London, DJ Moore. My tight end room is just T.J. Hawkinson and Dallas Goedert.
All right, and I have Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. I have Tua Tagovailoa. Then at running back, I got Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Najee Harris, Ken Walker, Miles Sanders. Then at wide receiver, this is where most of my draft went to. Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Stephon Diggs. We got CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, Jerry Jeudy, Devonta Smith. Then at tight end, I got Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts. So I'm excited to see how this shakes out this season. We'll provide some updates throughout the season, and we'll come up with a punishment for the loser of this draft, and we will stream that live, I'm sure. So that was a lot of fun. You know, it was a 3-person draft, so take it how you will, but it's very interesting to see some of these players that move and where they ended up. So you kind of got where our thoughts are with some of these guys, who we were choosing them over, and yeah. So we're gonna get out of here tonight. We'll do another episode. Not sure what we're gonna do yet, but we're gonna come up with something cool and move forward with that. So, anything else you two would like to add to the listeners?
If you haven't checked that Underdog, check it out. It's a cool platform. Best ball's a fun format. I mean, if for anyone that's not familiar with what best ball is, it takes all your players at that position, and whoever scores the highest, it automatically plugs them into those positions on your team. So you don't have to play matchups or anything like that. It automatically just puts them all in every week. And yeah, pretty much best ball's fun. Check it out, and good luck on your drafts.
Well said. All right, guys, let's end this out tonight. We'll see you all on the next episode. Take it easy, everyone.
Peace out.
Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Follow us on Twitter at TheHeroesFF.